Stop using the bench press as the only means for you to grow a bigger chest. It's not the best tool for the job, and here's why. When we're talking about the bench press, especially if you're a power lifter looking to get a bigger chest, or if you're actually a bodybuilder looking to get bigger muscles, build that hypertrophy in your pecs, and you're using the bench press, you're leaving so much on the table and you are not getting the gains that you deserve. When we bench press, we'll do a few reps here, we never get our pecs in a fully stretched position. When you're trying to build maximum hypertrophy in a muscle, you need to make sure you're hitting the fully shortened and the fully lengthened position of that muscle. With a bench press, especially if you're a strength athlete, your goal is the shorter range of motion. When we're looking at this bench press, his stress is never on the pecs. His is always going to be on the triceps and the front delts and a little bit of the pecs. If your goal is specifically hypertrophy and to get bigger muscles, we need to break down a couple variations that you need to be putting into your program to actually get the results that you're looking for. There are better tools for the job to building the size of a muscle than a barbell. The first variation to get bigger pecs more effectively is to use a cable stack machine, specifically a crossover machine. Luckily enough, we have this monster crossover machine here. And this is a pec fly. So a lot of things are going on here and it's not as straightforward as you think. So I'm gonna have Alex demonstrate just a couple here. A couple key points. I want you to start out in front. I want you to really find that position where it feels like your armpit and your pec are meeting, right? We want to get that maximum contraction, bringing that pec from that shoulder joint all the way back to that center line. So always starting with that peak contraction here, and you feel it, right? Beautiful. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't just bring our shoulder blades back, right? What we want to focus in on is trying to keep those shoulder blades forward as long as we can, so all that tension goes right on the pec. Keep them forward. Let them, yep, keep going, keep going. And when you can't stabilize that position anymore, then you let that shoulder blade come around that rib cage, and now all that pressure and all that stress is right on that stretched muscle there on the pec. So now from this position, same idea, squeeze, perfect. You don't need to bring all the hands together. You want to maximize all on your pec, right? So these are not easy. And if you're going to be doing these at home or doing these at your own gym, slower the better, focusing on that tempo and spending time in the positions that will give you the most benefit and most bang for your buck. So tempo on these, I really, really like spending about 2 seconds in that fully lengthened position. Bring it back, fully lengthened. There you go, keeping that rib cage down. Good, you feel how that changed that? Keeping that fully stretched position, 2 seconds, squeezing that forward, letting those shoulder blades go around that rib cage. Oh, we're shaking. We're shaking. This is way better than a bench press with a straight bar for those pecs. We'll do one more. Yep, see how controlled it is. He's not using a ton of weight. He's challenging the muscle. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Perfect. Rest. And the reason we're doing it at this angle, and you'll have to adjust it yourself, you want to make sure you're working the muscle in the direction that the actual muscle fibers are. So if you're a bigger dude or you're a bigger girl that has a larger pec muscle, you may have to adjust the height or the size or the distance up. That's a stupid thing to say. We're going to keep rolling. The height of the cable machine, right? You maybe have to go a little bit lower if your sternum angle is a little bit higher. You may have to go a little bit, bend over a little bit more if you have more of a downward angle on that sternum. The idea is you want to be able to adjust the position to make sure you're hitting that pec that is specific for you. So that's option number one. Let's see what we can do with just a simple set of dumbbells. All right, guys, I forgot one more thing to tell you about the cable machine. Why we utilize this is because it provides that constant tension on that muscle. When you're using dumbbells, we need to get a little bit more creative to get that same sort of constant tension, as well as the line of pull. I had mentioned before, you need to adjust the height to make sure it fits you. This line of pull is perfect for me and my chest, and you need to do the same. Make sure the settings are right for you. If you don't have access to a cable machine, you can do an incline power fly with dumbbells. Same thing, we want to make sure that the line of pull and the force of gravity is pulling in the same direction that the muscle fibers are. So for Alex, we have a slight incline here. For you specifically, depending on the angle of your sternum and how big you are, you may have to go higher, you may have to go lower. So this is perfect for Alex, so let's go. When you're performing these, we want to make sure that we're kind of mimicking the same exact motion over there that we did in the cable machine. So you're going to start in that position. Perfect. And now what I don't want to see is just a regular fly. That's not what we're looking for. You can feel a lot of sensation, but that's not getting the full range of motion of that muscle. So now I'm going to call this, it's like weighted hugs. We want a slight bend, and it's a mix between a press and a fly. So you're going to come down, let those pecs stretch. You feel that even more? Perfect. And now you want to think about that same motion and kind of mimic it that we were doing on that cable machine. So less of a fly, more of a press. Press it up, keeping that elbow bend. Oh, his pecs are popping. Let me tell you, he went from an A cup to a B cup with just this exercise. Perfect, let's do a couple more. Same thing, you want to spend time in that fully lengthened position. Stretch, 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 squeeze, spend some time squeezing that, perfect. Keeping that tempo slow, keeping the intention of this exercise to get as much force and as much tension throughout that muscle. If your goal is to build bigger muscles, you need to make sure the force is actually going into the muscle and not just the shoulder joint. Do not go crazy heavy on these until you get that form correct. That's the worst thing you can possibly do because, again, you're working a movement instead of a muscle. If your goal is a bigger muscle, you need to put the tension in that muscle. Don't worry about the weight. Make sure that you're doing it right. Make sure the form is there, and you're going to grow. So one of the things that we're trying to do when we're growing a muscle, we need to go from fully shortened and fully lengthened. But in powerlifting and strength sports, most of the time we're always thinking of bringing that shoulder blade down and back. When you're looking to grow your pecs, we need to let that shoulder blade move. We need it to protract. We need it to make sure we get the fully shortened position of that pec and it's allowed to kind of rotate around the shoulder blade. So what we're going to show you here is what we're talking about. So focusing in on that shoulder blade, when he comes across and comes in, he's got to bring that shoulder blade forward to get the maximal contraction on his pec specifically. If he doesn't, let's bring it back. Yeah, if he sticks that shoulder blade down and back, he's never getting that fully shortened position. And in fact, you can see it around here. So we'll demonstrate that. So we'll go from this position. So switch the shirt right here. So we're looking for pec to meet, origin to insertion, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to do it right. So here we go. You can see that pec meeting, getting that maximal contraction here, and he's allowing that shoulder blade to come forward. So let's do it the other way. If you try to think about keeping that shoulder blade down and back, what you're going to notice here, not nearly as much of a contraction, and he can't even get in that same range of motion. So when you're utilizing this technique or utilizing this exercise, make sure you get that shoulder blade moving so that you can get that maximal contraction on that pec. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video and you'll utilize these exercises to grow your pecs. We see too many times people doing exercises that aren't the best thing for the job that they're trying to accomplish. If your goal is hypertrophy and bigger muscles in your chest, you need to make sure you're doing the exercises that's going to give you the most bang for your buck. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, check out all the links down below, like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you in the next one.